Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our third episode of our popular DIH talk on a nice sunny Friday, a hot Friday actually, and I would say today even a hot topic, cybersecurity on IT and OT. Quite an interesting one, interesting topic. We see it also on the number of registrations we had again, which is above 80 people, so welcome. And before we enter into the topic, just to introduce myself, I'm Joe Clemens, working for Lux Innovation, and I'm part of the Digital Innovation Hub here in Lëtzebuerg. We are a team of 3. Started last year in that journey, and we are mainly looking and trying to help manufacturing companies in their journey towards digital transformation, digital innovation in the matter of Industry 4.0, but also beyond that, of course. Just a bit of housekeeping before we really enter into the subject. Regarding this tool, you will find below a chat, a question, and a poll area. And on the chat, as most of you most likely will know it, you can basically make comments to the entire audience, but you can also get in contact with individuals that have joined this webinar. The question section we will use, and please use it for your questions related to what the speakers are going to present throughout the next 60 minutes. Don't use the chat because we might overlook then that there was an important question. So we will have, for the first 2 sections, we will have a Q&A section for about 3 to 4 to 5 minutes. The first one might be even a bit longer. We will see how it goes. Also, there is a poll section, and actually you will already find 2 polls. And you can already start to answer those, but I will come to those during my introduction presentation that I start in a moment. Also for your, as a reminder, this session is recorded, so it is available afterwards as a replay and also available in the Lux Innovation YouTube channel. So that you can go for a repeat. In case you like to get in contact with me, with the Digital Innovation Hub, with Lux Innovation, or with one of the speakers, don't be afraid to contact us afterwards, and we will bring you in contact. Okay, having that said, let's start with it. So today it's about cybersecurity, OT, and IT. And before going there, maybe a general question, if the Digital Innovation Hub and our mission for the ecosystem of manufacturers is known to you. And I would appreciate your answers in the poll section, please. So I see already many have already answers. So most of the audience today, it's not always like that, seems to know what our mission is. So I will be a bit faster on the introduction and rather we spend more time on the topic, which is the most important element for today. Just as a reminder, we are here to support the ecosystem of manufacturing companies in Lëtzebuerg. We do that by bringing all the different actors together, which starts from research institution, IT providers, OEMs, system integrators, large and medium and small size manufacturing companies, and many, many others. So this is one of the main targets to basically, we always say, do the hubbing parts and networking part between the different actors. But of course, and that's also for what Lux Innovation stands when it comes to support activities regarding financial help from national or European support programs. This is the right address to get in contact with. And last not least, we are also looking beyond the borders of Lëtzebuerg. We are also more and more well connected into the greater region. So depending on the topic, we can also help there. And in a nutshell, what we basically do is inform, inspire, and engage. Engage is also one example here. You find it even on our DIH.lu web pages. What is the ecosystem? And most of you know it then already. We have about 450 manufacturing companies in Luxembourg and more than 250 IT providers, plus about 50 startups that are active in that field. That was also some of the work we did last year, basically to first to identify the different players. Another example, and maybe some of you joined the Smart Manufacturing Week last week, where we presented already some analysis, was the Digital Transformation Industry 4.0 surveys that we did. And we have already responses, could be more, and it's still open. After the Smart Manufacturing Week, we decided to keep it open for the next 4 weeks. So feel free still to join, and you can still participate in this survey. Actually, we see already quite interesting feedback from those that responded, and very helpful for us also to make sure that we provide the right services to you. In the category of inform and inspire certainly falls those DIH talks, and today we have one of them. Today it's on cybersecurity, as already mentioned. So this is a typical thing we are doing. For those that don't know, we have actually every month one session, and you're more than welcome also to become a speaker, like we have speakers today with a success story to share best practices, to share things like that. So this is what we mean under inform and inspire. Now, starting into the topic, why we selected this topic actually, and by going through several surveys, global surveys on cybersecurity attacks, it might surprise the one or the other, but manufacturing companies became by last year already the main target for cyber attacks. That is not known to all, but many are aware. So it's even above the financial and insurance sector that had been targeted all the years before. And that shows also the importance of the content of our discussion today. What is changing actually? I mean, if we look a little bit backwards, OT, or let's say the production environment, and IT in the past were two different worlds. But today's technology is actually bringing it together. And with more and more IT technologies under the Industry 4.0 or other technologies, are even enforcing that IT and OT is more or less becoming one thing sooner or later, or at least they get connected. And usually the IT environment is already connected into internet and cloud. And so, I mean, and you have to be, if you move in that direction, of course, you have to be very, very careful on your cybersecurity measures that you have in place. And this is a bit small and hard to read, I know, but I'm anyway not planning to go through the details of that. But the main message here is that if we look to the different characteristics of IT and OT, and also what is possible when it comes to cybersecurity measures, those two worlds are still quite different in most companies. It's a bit like the old days of blue collar and white collar worker, I would say, and necessary. And here we have also conflicting objectives to reach when it comes to OT in comparison to IT. And that leads me also to this question, and I would certainly appreciate if you would also fill out that poll. So the question here is, when you consider, provided you are in manufacturing company, considering your OT security level, what is the level you have actually implemented in your company? Are those two worlds physically still completely separated? Are they logically separated by simply putting firewall in between? Or is there what we would classify as a true convergence between OT with some or with quite advanced security measures? And I will provide the answers of the audience after the next speaker. And our first speaker today will be Fabien Mathey from Smile, Security Mate in Lëtzebuerg. I'm pretty sure many people know him already. Fabien is working since a long time already with Smile, and he is certain very, very passionate when it comes to cybersecurity measures. And Fabien, the stage is yours.
Well, thank you. I hope you can all hear me. Thank you very much for allowing me to be part of this. Let me just go ahead, and if I look downwards, it's normal. I got hold my control panel down here, so don't be worried. I'm going to have to select the presentation really quickly. It's going to be more of an introduction to the whole cybersecurity issue, because information security is important. And we all know that operational technology and information technology are two extremely separate things. However, we try to connect both of them right now. So let's start maybe off with a very short introduction into the cybersecurity on information technology. Everybody knows that we have access control and passwords that are supposed to be in place, right? Nothing new. Everybody knows that. And it's 11 o'clock, no, it's past 11, it's 11:15, and I'm starting off with that right away. We also have emails, spam, phishing, malware. Everybody knows that. Probably everyone participating here has had at least a couple of spams just today. Now, the problem is that even phone calls start to become more frequent. People calling, asking information, wanting you to do something that you're not supposed to do. Therefore, they use social engineering and all these techniques that exists. We have vulnerabilities and the change management, which most of the time is not correctly implemented. That means we are having big problems with software being out of date and therefore extremely vulnerable. Also, we have the decommissioning and disposal of material that we have. We have all these information technology systems, which at some point in time might become obsolete. So they need to be removed. And the disposal, there's a whole procedure behind that we have to take into account. There is policies, procedures, and also recovery plans. And sadly, the latter is very often ignored in many parts of companies, and by experience also in industries, right? There's a whole long list of these things that I could mention here, because we have been going on and on and on over the past 20 years to get security in the information technology up and running, right? However, with operational technologies and information technologies, there's a big difference, right? Information technologies are generalized systems. They are there to do multiple things, try to communicate amongst each other, and so on and so forth. Operational technology usually is the technology that we use, of course, in industry, in productions, right? So they are very specialized equipment. They can do something very specific very well. And so with each of these devices that we put in there, we do not have an homogeneous operating system. We do not have homogeneous applications. Each and every one of these has their own operating system most of the time, because they have been designed specifically to accomplish a certain task well. Okay. Then, of course, in IT, we are talking, as I said, more about the generalized thing. So we have a homogeneous operating system, although many of us do not update them. And if you go to hospitals, you see what I mean. But all of these are very, very homogenized. They use the same basic components, they use the same communication patterns, and so on and so forth. So that is also very easy to just slap on an antivirus, like an agent of some sort that can detect strange things happening. With operational technology, that's not necessarily the case, and therefore we might need to add layers to it. We might have to select specific switches which are able to communicate with operational technology, but then again are able to transform it to protocols and communications for the information technology, right? Then, of course, we have the operation technology and information technology together becoming something like an IoT, Internet of Everything, or Internet of Things, basically, because if you want to access your operation technology from information technology, that basically means you have a translation device in between that makes it easier for attacks to just go ahead and jump in, because the translation is done by your own equipment. So that's why the attack surface increases very easily. And there are also different security requirements on both, right? Because if we have operational technology, we might have everything connected to a, for example, fixed IP address. They have been predefined in configuration, and thus attacks on DHCP servers might not be noticed in your operational technology environment. And they might be in there somewhere because they have been infected a couple of years ago. Now, if you connect both of them, then all of a sudden, all your DHCP reliant services might crash because that thing was already in there. We don't know. Same goes the other way around. So there are many, many challenges ahead. So for one, as I said, the technology is a big challenge, right? The connecting both of them is something that's going to be very, very difficult, specifically because sometimes in operational technology, to make it easier, we copy-paste the configuration on different parts of industry equipment. So we might have IP addresses which are simply existent multiple times on a production floor, but because they're not connected to information technology, or they're not connected amongst each other, that is not a problem. These are things that are some detailed problems that can emerge, but there are many, many, many more. But there are also the people which become a little bit of a challenge, not because the people are strange or anything, just don't get that wrong. But the problem is we need trainings and we need communication between two completely different camps of people. You know, operational technology, they are specific. People, if you know something about a certain production line, that does not work one-to-one for another production line. And for IT, it's the opposite. If you know how to secure a system, you can secure a system basically in every other company, no problem. So homogenized trainings might be a good idea in this case, because there's also many, many ideas of how to secure something in one, but and some in the other, and both of them have to join, so we have to bring them together. The processes change as well. There's a much bigger landscape to take into account now. For example, change management. If we update a firewall now in the IT system, is that actually a good idea? Is that firewall able to communicate with the operational technologies? Same goes for the other way around. And then, of course, there's the risk governance. We have the new standards that we need to have. There will be new incidents. There will be many, many different things. Okay? In essence, for recommendation-wise, there will be general recommendations, okay? But in the technology, we need to ensure that we have a secure interoperability between the operational technology and the information technology. I'm not telling you anything new here, because if we have a big attack surface, we need to take into consideration the whole attack surface when we do risk assessment and we do the preventions and the configurations in different firewalls and everything. Okay, so we always have to consider both sides now if we connect both of them together. The other thing is, with people, we need to have cross-functional trainings. We need to have trainings that work for IT specialists as well as OT specialists, and we need to continuously train them, because now operational technology becomes very, very complex additionally to what it already was. So instead of just concentrating on the production line and how to these things work in your production line, you now need also to concentrate on security issues, configuration changes, and things that will happen in your environment. Same goes the other way around. If you are specialized in IT, if you want to change anything, as I said before, you need to be aware of the whole industry behind it. And the process, the same. Supply chain management, quality control, all of these things now need to include IT and OT. So it's a very big challenge, and there's a lot to think about. And also the governance. With all these changes going so quickly, the only thing we can do is start to share and start to communicate together. We need to be ready to share risk models, which not means it doesn't mean to share the details and the classified information. It does mean to share models that can adhere to risk assessment and communicate on your incidents that you had, so that other industries might not get into it. Okay. And for to-dos, for us, there are many to-dos, but on the DIH platform here, we are able to then work together and have a good outcome. So we can define trainings that are cross-functional, we can define standards that are homogeneous for everyone, and we can work together on informed governance indicators with regulators and everyone involved. And also, we might be able to convince people to get like an incentive plan or something. That is something that could be a good idea for the future. But this should only be a small introduction to get our heads and mindsets into information security or cybersecurity, connecting both sides. So that's why I wanted to keep it short enough so that everyone could start, jump in, and maybe ask a couple of questions.
Thank you very much, Fabien. It's very interesting. Maybe to start with a little question from my side already, knowing Smile since a longer time now, knowing all the guidance you provide, particularly in the areas of, let's say, security awareness, typically more in a back office environment, IT. Are you running some similar programs already on OT, or are companies generally, manufacturing companies, contacting you regularly?
On this level, not yet, because we mostly focused on information technology. The reason behind it is because we are still in Luxembourg, sadly, although other countries tell us that we have a lot of advance on other countries, we are still lacking behind the main standards on information technology, which is, in my opinion, one of the bigger challenges if we then connect the operational technology to the information technology. So, because if we don't secure one, we might just be attacked through that door. That's basically what will happen. But there are companies that have contacted us to work together, but on the information technology aspect of it.
Yeah. And when we look or when we consider the global threats that we see in some of the security reports that at least I have read, I mean, that it is getting up to 25% of the attacks are targeted to manufacturing companies. I know you cannot disclose company names, of course, but would you say we see something similar already in Luxembourg or not at all?
Well, let me rephrase it in this way. It is normal that industry gets attacked, because an attacker usually wants the least amount of effort with the most amount of reward. Now, the cool thing about manufacturing is that most manufacturing companies do not want to copy another manufacturing company. So that's why they're even more targeted than financial sectors, because if an attacker is able to blackmail or stop a production facility, they will disrupt not only the production facility, but the whole supply chain, which might be great because they might be working for a competitor, or they might be working for another country which dislikes that sort of product, or something like that. It could be anything, right? But the impact is huge if the production line stops working. And I mean, there are probably many people in the audience that know more about the financial impacts and the problems and the regulations and the contracts that they have with other companies than me. But that's one of the main reasons why they just are targeted more because it brings a huge reward. And even production companies are more likely also to pay if they haven't secured it enough and they lost everything, because it might be more expensive for them to not pay and lose a couple of weeks of production than to just pay ransoms or whatever it is that the attacker is asking for, or stealing blueprints. That's also what they do. But yeah.
Okay, now a few questions are coming in, Nicola. I have one from Harald Hau. Hello, Harald. He's asking how you see the future development for the both sectors, I guess OT and IT. If you would pick out now your class ball, Fabien, what would it be?
Which one I would choose to continue my work in? What do you mean?
No, I think would you consider that both OT and IT will truly become, also from a cybersecurity aspect, one thing, one solution for both?
Well, there's two ways of seeing it. The first one is it could become one, and the reason for it is all these buzzwords that they are throwing around, like artificial intelligence and all of these things, and optimizing production. Because the only way to become faster at producing and to optimize production is if we get computers involved to do a specific task, because they are very quick in analyzing things. So in that sense, it depends on the production line, I suppose. But some will be heavily computerized, and that's why if we have OT and IT, I don't think they should be separate anymore, because if both of them need to work together, I think security of them needs to be treated as one topic, as a global topic. There might be specialists more into IT and more into OT, simply for the matter that the field is huge. But the whole thing should always be looked at as one. If you connect something to a web, to a server, to a network, to a switch or something, that becomes part of the whole risk and the whole security issue. It doesn't matter if that's a front door or if that's a robot fixing something. It's always part of it. And that means the attack surface gets bigger. That's basically it.
Okay,
so
thank you.
that can be treated as one or not. So it depends on the production line afterwards.
Have a question from Lisa. She's asking what could be the entry point into a company if you have also a solution in your hand. I mean, often you have in larger company a CISO, but it's not necessarily the one who is carrying the IT budget. OT is often the plant manager or the production manager, again, another budget. Any recommendations in that area? What is a good entry point when contacting companies?
Well, it's usually a discussion with management as such, the top level management, because this is we are trying to now go through multiple departments, disciplines, however you want to talk to it. So it's often a good point to just sit down with the top management and ask them about their expectations and what they want to achieve. Because for some production lines, maybe connecting everything is definitely not the solution. Maybe for them, the benefit that they get for connecting something is so marginal that the investment is too high. And that is also something that each and every company needs to figure out. But for that, we need to go to the top level management. And then we need also to figure out if the top level management is on board with security. That is essentially a big problem in cybersecurity anyways, because many times the top level management isn't on board with cybersecurity because they have to change then their passwords, which they've been using for 20 years. And that is a main problem that we're having many times in companies. They are the ones the first infected. And if we then connect the operational technology to it, I mean, it's fun. But the main contact points, you could go into the company anyway, but the goal is to have a contact with the top level management or discussion with the top level management to look at their plannings and their ideas on how to continue this endeavor.
Yeah, so what I would take out of what you were saying, Fabien, it's a lot about awareness on top level management. And that's probably where maybe we also from Lux Innovation, DIH, together with you, should also work a bit more on it to make people aware about the risk. And talking about risk, Arno was asking, From your experience, do you see more risk for a successful attack on OT or IT?
Oh, it depends on the goals. I mean, if to become collateral damage by some big hacker group that just wants to try where they get their hands on, it's probably more likely to go into IT because, as I said, IT is more homogeneous and it is easier to find something as people don't update their systems. So that's easier to get into that. But as systems or like attacks like with the very famous Stuxnet have shown to us, it doesn't matter what system you're using if your if the company of your production system is attacked by something, they are as likely to get, let's say, destroyed, if you will, as the IT systems. It just depends on the goal, on the agenda of the attacker. Now, of course, getting emails with crypto ransomware is very common, and people clicking on them is very common as well. So it depends on the awareness of each individual in the company. So trainings for employees, even though not working as a specialist or configuration person, is definitely essential as well.
Okay. I have two last questions, otherwise we will run out of time. The one is a question from Cesara asking if IoT actually is making it worse today. Or maybe I like to extend it, I would say typical industry 4.0 technology, are that even increasing the risk?
Well, with everything that you connect to a system, to a network, exposing it to the public internet increases the attack surface. And that's also true for private devices, if you so will, because if you have an industry where you add a connected coffee machine at the end, if you will, that coffee machine is in the network, and that coffee machine can potentially be a threat to the whole network. So every time you add something to the network, you should be always careful if you really need it, how to really configure it correctly, how to configure your firewalls, your connection settings and everything correctly, so to minimize the risks of anything happening. Yeah, but these things, the more you connect, the more attack surface there is.
Okay, and then it's also a question, would it make sense to merge the people from OT and IT that are concerned to cybersecurity? Would you think that's an appropriate measure to do?
I don't think that this should be the solution. And the reason is very simple. There is common knowledge that needs to be shared between IT and OT people, but there's also a lot of things in the IT that are not necessarily needed by someone in OT, and same for the other way around. OT people are very specialized people in the production line, even if they are quote unquote just configuring the communication as such, but they understand these systems much better. But there is common knowledge in between that has to form. So the IT guys need to learn a little bit more OT, and the OT guys need to learn a little bit about IT, because now if we connect both of them, each and every one needs to understand the vocabulary of the other group, so that when changes are made, both can join together in doing the right configuration, so that not everything goes down, which can happen if you make changes strangely.
Thank you, Fabien, and thanks for the presentation on all the additional information you have now shared related to question and answers. We have not answered everybody, I know that, but unfortunately we are a bit running now out of time. So
Sorry.
I'd like to go ahead, and related to the Q&A, interesting wise, on the second poll, we got 16 votes from the audience. And I would say rounded now, 30% are in the category A, 30 in the category B, about 20-25 in C, and 10 to 15% in the category D. So we see already that some companies are certainly moving in securing the strategy of an IT-OT convergence. Certainly, if, in my opinion, if you consider to move ahead, for example, with technologies related to artificial intelligence, machine learning, or simply increasing efficiency by connecting your ERP system with the shop floor, of course, the minimum you have to do is B. Otherwise, you will never get to a nice integration. And that's also, again, today, the objective here, to increase the awareness that to connect the two worlds, also under the objective to move ahead on more modern technologies in the area of Industry 4.0. I think it's a must do, but don't do it. And here I'm really repeating Fabien from former sessions we had together. Don't move ahead on Industry 4.0 if you don't have your proper security measures in place at the same moment in time. Having that said, I'd like to introduce the next two speakers, which is Timo Dennis from IEE Sensing. Timo is since nearly 2 years the Global IT Security Officer at IEE. And they are working together with F3C, and our speaker today from that company will be Frederick Lenz. And really looking forward, because we have here two gentlemen that have more than 20 years, or together I would say 40 years of experience in IT, in networking, and surely in IT security. Frederick, Timo, the floor will be yours. I close my presentation.
Thank you, Joachim. So first, I want to thank Timo, who I really appreciate that he agreed to do the presentation with me, because for me it was really important to explain you and show you real-world examples of people who have done things right. Who have done things right in a very complex way, but who are also interesting enough to have a view of how to make it in a bit more simple way, in a pragmatic way, in order to implement OT security, not only for the big enterprises, but also for the smaller enterprises, which, as Fabien said, are prime targets for hackers who really go for the simple stuff. They go for the easiest, the weakest link, they go for the easiest target. And that's something that you need to understand. So the goal of today's presentation is to show you that OT security actually is not too complex to implement. But before going to OT, I wanted to go back to the golden rules of IT security. Fabien touched the subject. I have my own set of rules. So first and foremost, you need to secure the network and have a block all approach, which is not necessarily the case in OT, right, Timo?
Yes, fully true, yeah. I agree on this, yeah.
So usually you can even see people installing wireless access points in plants just to get yourself internet access.
Especially when the network is growing over decades and there might be some missing points in the network and they can plug in their own network. So you need strong control over the network and who is able to bring devices in or plug them in. That's true.
And if you cannot secure the network, you cannot analyze everything.
Yeah. The bottom is also, you writing here a point about key analyze logs with legacy products or legacy OT equipment. It's even not possible to get the logs out of the systems. Then you need some other measures, like agent-based systems who pull the logs on a daily or periodic basis, and you go through them with some intelligent software.
Which is fun because you already touched my last point, which is about update. Is that something you can do on an OT network?
It depends the OT equipment. For some vendors, it's allowed to do updates, but we have also some very strict vendors where they write into the instructions that you're not allowed to do any backups or any updates, but also not install any endpoint security or third-party software. That can be very hard to achieve then a good security standpoint. Yeah. But for the majority, you're allowed to do the updates, but we have some specific suppliers who really write no endpoint security and no updates on the systems. And this makes a quite weak link in the OT, and then you have to take different measures to understand the system and so on, where we talk later.
Okay, I think that all your machinery is handled by recent OS, or do you still have very, very old OS like Windows 98?
We try to have the latest OS, which is supported from the vendor, but for some specific cases where, for example, a supplier for specific machinery doesn't exist anymore, then you have to list with the consequences where the OS is not updated, and then you have to take special resilient security measures to understand and monitor the systems. Yeah.
So you touched briefly the point, you need to know your environment, but I know that some people, they have a tendency to install equipment by themselves. Is that something which also happens in your company sometimes?
No? There is
so you have very strict measures for this. But I also know that some companies, especially in the healthcare sector, they want to have remote access to the tools that they install. For instance, for MRI machines.
This is a big topic, yeah. Everyone wants this remote access from the suppliers, and it's hard to find a common sense how they access the systems. You can give some guidance there, but it will normally be a multi-layered approach how they can access the systems. This is known in open bar. We at IE try to give them times and timelines when they can access and control also who access the systems. Otherwise, if you give open bar with all tools, it's not a good idea.
So in a nutshell, OT security doesn't work in the same way as IT.
I fully agree.
So you have complex machines which you cannot update. You have contracts that require remote access, which you can do nothing about. You have sometimes no access to the underlying OS with no possibility to install endpoint security software or to patch it, right?
About the complex machines, it can be in a way that there is maybe a very legacy system growing over decades, but still used. You have your backups, have some redundant systems, but at the end, there's maybe no documentation, and it's error-prone to understanding of systems. If they are used for decades, nobody documents them, and the vendor is, let's say, virtually dead, then you end up in some difficulties to harden those systems, and you need to say the least. We go more in detail, and then you also name here what you said before, that you have contracts which require remote access. The bottom is there. If they provide a remote access license-wise, if it's secure software or not, and you really have to give also your point to suppliers. We do not agree maybe with this remote access approach. We want to give you maybe tailor-made approach. What we did at IE, we have different systems for this to access the OT system, but we're also developing and redeveloping now an OT-based jump host system where you can safely go into the OT network. But tailor-made so you understand the product and the way how to access it.
And there's one last point which I think is very important for 24/7 operations, that you cannot easily upgrade everything. Because if you need to shut down a plant, it needs to be done in a very controlled way. It's very complex.
Right. It's not only about this, even a single reboot will be end up in long discussions if you can reboot and what's the state after the reboot. Some systems are running for months, and it's you have to line for updates, reboots, and any downtime of the systems.
Which means that you can end up with very vulnerable systems for months before they can be patched, if they can even be patched at all.
Yeah, I fully agree.
So there's a model to secure all of this. Now, the goal of that slide is not to make you nervous about all the things that you need to deploy. It's just to explain you that there has been a model which has been developed, which is quite complex, but we'll try to explain you that a little bit. So at the top of it, the layer number 6 is basically your internet. That's where you have your cloud, your VPN, your Internet of Things, and that needs to be secured with proper tools from cloud security. You have the business and enterprise zones, which are very important. That's where you have your enterprise network and your business planning. All of that is interconnected with the cloud and with the internet through a DMZ, a demilitarized zone, which we call the information technology DMZ. It's the same model for everything. When you need to go a layer up or a layer down, you always need to go through a demilitarized zone. Level 3, it's the operations and control. That's actually where you will have all the machinery which is taking care of making sure that everything is working correctly in the plant. In order to communicate with the various SCADA networks, etc., you need to have an industrial control system, DMZ, once more. And to secure all those accesses between the various zones, before coming to the process control zone, you need to pass through a certain number of layers of firewall. Firewall being then secured, transparent, you need to have multi-factor authentication to access them, you need threat protection. And when you go to the process and control zones, and also to the operation zones, you need to have very specific threat protection and application control in order to understand these protocols. This is very, very important to understand. The protocols which are used in operations and control zones and in the process control zones are completely different than the ones you are using in IT, right, Steve?
And mostly plain text and not support anymore. You might have a protocol talking plain text over decades, and it's a given fact that this protocol works as a charm, but it's plain text, so you have to take, as that's it, different measures there.
And that's why also you need to have different layers in the process control zones between the sensors, the actuators, and the HMIs and the SCADA network, etc.
Yeah. There's also one point about the Purdue model, which is not really illustrated in those high-level things here. The 4, 5, 6 layer is basically your office network where you have your employees working. And if this 4, 5, 6 area is not hardened securely, you always have a danger that somebody touches the underlying DMZ and the control zones of the OT network. So harden all those zones is a core element of the Purdue model, but also to understand what is going on in every of those zones.
So let's put it bluntly, it's all very nice, but it's way too complex for SMEs. So the point I want to show is that we need to cover the basics, actually. If you start with the basics, what are they? Fabien touched them, we're saying it again. First, you need to know your network. You need to know your machinery. You need to know your suppliers, and you need to know the people. You really need to know the process owners, the plant managers, and the operators of the machines. This is the key to getting a bit of security inside your OT network. And I see that Joachim is there, so we don't have too much time, so I will go a bit faster. So securing the OT, everything starts with having a clear distinction between the OT environment and the IT environment. It's not necessarily that you need to have separate networks, but you need to interconnect them because your ERP systems now needs to speak with your OT system. So you need to place control points strategically between the different layers of the Purdue model. You see, you need at least a demarcation point between IT and OT, and inside your OT environment, you also need to have specific firewalls. They can be virtual if you want, to control access to the various networks. You have the DMZ network, which is shielded by a firewall, the process network, which is shielded by a firewall, and the control network. The idea here is that no single machine can go more than one layer up. That's the key to having at least a bit of security in your network.
If you go one slide back, please. If you cannot guarantee this, that you put virtual or physical firewalls in the different network zones, another approach could be that you have some very granular endpoint protection with firewalls dedicated on the endpoint machinery. Of course, this is a quite schizophrenic approach, but at the end, you can define zones and achieve the same.
So when we even can install an endpoint security software, because the next point was about to be about endpoint management. So I said you need to know your network and endpoints. You must have real-time visibility on what's plugged into the network. Fabien talked about it, but unauthorized devices, they are a real threat. And as well, what looks like a sensor when it has been installed, or a coffee machine, like the example that took Fabien, a coffee machine can be an adversary. Maybe it has been hacked, maybe it has been abused, and someone installed reconnaissance software on it. You never know.
Which underlines your question to me. Do you make sure that nobody can connect something to the OT network? A simple coffee machine in the OT network talking TCP/IP can be a high risk for the full business. That's true.
So if we go a step further, we need to have a zero trust approach. And it needs to start with the people. Fabien again told that, but you need to educate them, you need to explain them and show them the risk. You need to have mandatory trainings for cybersecurity, good practices, which are different on an OT network than in IT. I'm not saying that you must not educate people in IT. I say you need to educate people in IT and in OT. Another very important point there is that you need to have a process in place for handling cyber incidents. And by cyber incidents, that can be as simple as a spam message. People must not fear to call the CISO when there is an issue with cybersecurity. Actually, they need to be incentivized to do that. It continues with the process. So you need to plan for the worst, including in the OT world. If you don't have a disaster recovery plan available, and if you don't have support contracts on all your equipment, what can happen if one of that machine is compromised? Nobody will come and help you if you don't have a support contract. And if the machine is crypto-locked, Well, if you don't have a backup, what do? Basically, you can throw the machine in the bin and start all over again.
Fully agree.
All of that ends with technology. It won't solve it all, and it can be very complex and challenging to use, especially for OT networks where there is a lack of documentation sometimes, isn't it?
It's more about understanding the flows than going directly with products. If you want to secure an OT network and start with all app packs, you start burning money and you might not have the right focus. You should do it step by step, knowing the systems, knowing the network, the people, before you go more in detail about the security aspects of it.
The key point of the day, and yes, Joachim, we are nearing the end, it's that if you're pragmatic about it, you can secure your OT network with minimum investment. And please, by all means, ask yourself these two questions. This question, what happens if my OT environment becomes crypto-locked? I think that most of you will have only one answer. I go bankrupt. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Frederic and Timo. Very interesting. And I mean, to reconnect also to what Fabien was saying, I think a lot of it is again about people. It's not just having certain cyber security technologies in place. It's about people. It's about awareness. And maybe we start with the first quick question to Timo. Timo, have you done in IEE sensing any specific trainings towards your production stuff on the awareness side when it comes to cybersecurity, or how did you approach it?
We have an internal awareness documentation in our intranet. And for the OT, it's a direct conversation with the people who working on the systems, but we also make direct communications to the employees who work on the systems. Yeah.
Okay, very interesting. And do you have also, let's call it a standard PC, like you would have it on the back office side, also inside your production environment with email, internet access, or you prevent that?
It depends the situation where they have access to internet. In this case, the systems are well known, hardened, understood who works on them. For our other systems who might not have the need for internet and mails, and we should have a need to connect, there we have specific tailor-made jumpers to access those systems, yes. But the global rule for us is that no internet in OT. That's a global rule.
Yeah.
Know your network, know your services, and by generally, we don't provide internet in the OT.
Okay, understood. Thank you. I did not get new questions yet, and due to the sake of time, I think we could also go ahead and maybe you both, you follow the same nice example as Fabien did, maybe in case some new questions come up in the question tab, that you answer them,
in the chat.
real time. That would be nice. And we save a few minutes here. So thank you very much. Thanks for the interesting experience sharing here.
Thank you, Joachim.
So let's move on. Just like to share another thing. Just a second. Coming up now, we come to our new elements that we just added to our DIH talks. That was an idea we had within the team, also to give the platform to newcomers, startups, or companies that are providing solutions in a very niche market into Luxembourg. Therefore, we have invented, and we have stolen the idea, of course, from the cinema industry. We call it the sneak preview. And today, I really like to welcome Amir and Isaac from the company Ziga. And Ziga is a company that was just started to operate this year in Luxembourg. And they also have quite an interesting solution that is specifically made for OT. And the rest I will leave to the two gentlemen to introduce themselves and the company and the solution, of course. Looking forward. Thank you.
So, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. I hope you can see my screen. So, Ziga is an OT cyber solution.
No, we cannot see your screen yet.
Okay, let me try again.
I think it's...
How about now?
Now we see something really strange. Now we have it. Yes, you're there.
Now it's fine, Amir.
Okay. So SIGA is monitoring OT in level 0. You saw a few diagrams of Purdue model before. We monitor signals, electrical signals in level 0. And we will describe a little bit this concept in a minute. So first, we will have quick introduction and then some Q&A session between me and Isaac about key items in the OT in the last year and the difference between OT and IT cyber, and actually what is level 0. So my name is Amir Gil. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer of SIGA, Chemical and Biotechnology Engineer. And with me, we have Isaac Bokara, is our Area Sales Director to the region. So Isaac, let's go for the first question.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Amir, in few words, you can describe what were the major OT cyber attacks in 2021 and 2022, and how and why and how it changed the market?
Yes, sure. So here are a few examples of attacks, famous attacks. On the first one was on a water treatment plant in California. Basically, through TeamViewer, the attacker managed to mix with a dosage of fluorine. It was really found very quickly by the SOC guys and stopped. Another one is Colonial Pipeline in May 2021. I will go deeper on that. This is a changing, really changed the industry and the market, and we'll get into it. Iranian railway was attacked on July 21. Basically, they took over the scheduling systems. And when the Ukraine-Russia war started, when Germany declared that it supports Ukraine, a major wind energy attack happened in north of Germany. 6,000 wind energy productions were attacked. And when Japan basically said it supports Ukraine, Toyota manufacturing plant was attacked. Let's look a little bit more deeper into the Colonial Pipeline that basically changed a lot in the industry and the approach in the market. It's a major critical infrastructure attack, basically influenced fuel supply in 17 US states, and it was a turning point for the US administration. It was the first time the FBI approved ransomware payment via Bitcoin officially and recovered part of it, stole it back. And the Biden administration issued a state of emergency on May 9th until it was really recovered. It was a ransomware attack on the HMIs, no control, no visibility to the systems, so they stopped everything. And shortly afterwards, the White House issued major new directives that really is changing the market. And basically the Biden administration is also investing a lot of money in defense. So if we look at the Colonial Pipeline, the CEO admitted that the attack vector was through a vulnerable VPN. VPN had no multi-factor authentication, and this is how the TeamViewer guys could attack and go and plant the ransomware. And the architectural lesson learned was that more damage was prevented because OT and IT architecture was really highly segmented, so they can separate the machines that were attacked from the other network. And when attack was detected, all the OT network was taken offline. So how it changed the market? The basic assumption today is it's not a question of if you will be attacked, but just a matter of when. And this is how you should be preparing. So let's go for the next question, Isaac.
So, Amir, what is the main difference between OT and IT cyber challenge from your point of view?
So if we look at the Purdue model, in general, control networks are vulnerable by design. There are a lot of them are very old, new generations, but it's a mixture of systems and old and new computers. It's complete chaos, and PLC can be eventually compromised. And if you look at the IT security is mainly focused on data integrity and data protection, while OT is mainly focused on security of the process continuation and process resilience. So let's go for the next question.
Thank you, Amir. What is level 0 monitoring, and why you think it is important to monitor the OT in this level?
So if you look at the Purdue model, level 0 is where the process is really happening. Okay, this is where you can defend it, and you need to monitor it in this level because other levels can be compromised. So that's basically the change. It's a paradigm shift to monitor in level 0. You monitor the raw electrical signals that are a good source of data that is reliable, it's unhackable, it's fully out of band. It's not connected to the network, so it cannot be compromised like HMIs and PLCs. And basically, you collect the data, you learn what is normal, and then you can alert on anomalies. And this is how it looks roughly. We duplicate the electrical signal, convert it to data, collect it in industrial PC, and there the software learns what is normal and can start alerting on anomalies, and also detect if it's a cyber attack or not a cyber attack. So there's not much time. Thank you for your attention. I hope you can ask me some questions in the chat, but if you don't have time for that, you can call us, email us, or meet us in ICT Spring 2022 at the end of the month, 30 June. Isaac will be there with our marketing team. We welcome you to our booth. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Amir and Isaac. And yeah, indeed, there is indeed a question already for you guys in the chat. Maybe you try to answer it in the last remaining minutes, because we are a little bit over time, which was a bit expected, because today it is surely a quite difficult topics that we were trying to address here. And but thank you very much for the explanation, and also making the point that your solution is basically actually starting on a different level, indeed, on the signal level, which quite makes a difference from an architecture viewpoint. So very interesting. Thank you very much for that.
So I can answer quickly the question. I see over there, we complement solutions like Nozomi or Clarity. They are working in the OT network level, in the HMI and so on. We work in level 0. Okay, we read electrical signals and we learn them and see what is normal and not normal. And we can correlate that we collect and the alerts we provide with Nozomi or Clarity or the other types of alerts.
Okay. So thank you again. Thank you to all the speakers, Fabien, Timo, Frederick, Amir, and Isaac. Very interesting. I think in these 60 minutes, we saw a lot, starting, of course, on specific cyber technologies, but I think also today's discussion has shown, I mean, it has a lot to do with awareness, awareness of people, awareness of what kind of equipment I have in my plant. And it has also to do a lot with organizational matters. From my side, again, a big thank you, very interesting. And I hope that the audience does see it the same way. And therefore, we also like to ask the audience for some feedback if we consider the DIH talks under Inform and Inspire, how much did it contribute today to what you were expecting? So we would really appreciate your feedback also at the end of the day to improve for the future. And last not least, I like also to already communicate the next DIH talk, which will be a strong focus on data management, data analytics, A bit of artificial intelligence will be in it. You can read the details on our DIH.lu web pages, and it would be great to welcome you again. So I hope you enjoyed today. Have a great weekend, a nice sunny weekend. It will be hot as the topic of today. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a nice
Goodbye.
weekend.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.